ask you a question about a rule of the octave and fundamental chords. So, now and today we learn about triads, and every bass note in the key has a specific triad. How is the rule of the octave different from fundamental chords?
Well, enormously different. One thing is that Neapolitan, they never considered single chord as material of music. They always considered at least a succession or a progression of three chords. So the simplest harmonic entity in the Neapolitan theory is the cadenza semplice, which is made by a opening tonic, a middle dominant, and a closing tonic. Then from here they progressed forward to more complicated cadences, and the arrival point is the rule of the octave. The rule of the octave is the paradigm of tonality for the Partimento theory, and there's nothing to do with triads. So what I want to say is that they never wrote or considered the single chord as a significant entity in tonal music, but always at least a succession of three chords. And it doesn't matter if they are triad or they are not triad, it is the same. They were considered, they said consonanze, but what is funny is that for them consonanze or are not consonances, but they are the chords of the rule of the octave. So in the rule of the octave, you have also very dissonant chord, for example, the 2-4-6 chord. Well, they are consonances because they are part of the most important paradigm of tonal music. It's a completely different perspective.
You have uncovered some actual realizations of Partimenti. How rare are these realizations, and what conclusions should we draw from them?
They are rare, even though in the few 2 or 3 years, some more has been discovered. When I wrote my book I published it in 2012, and my research was concluded about 2010. So it is updated up to 2010. And there were only 2 original realizations, for sure, belonging to the 18th century, both of them of Durante Partimenti, and one is in Rome, in the Library of Archaeology and History of Art in Rome, and one is in the monastery of Grotta Ferrata, near to Rome. The difference is, they look more like a very flamboyant and virtuoso harpsichord sonata by Scarlatti than to a Bach chorale. They are virtuoso pieces, so it has nothing to do with what we think about a figure bass. When we at school, when we realize a figure bass and 4 voices with just chords and they keep the chords moving very smoothly, they're nothing like that. They are virtuoso pieces. So I guess that, yes, for the evidence we have, the aspect of virtuoso writing, of diminution, of I don't remember the name of it, but the fact that the instrumental style was very important.
Speaking of diminution, we have some examples of diminution exercises, but is that traditionally an oral way of disseminating it to students? How is a student supposed to learn diminution?
Yes, I think that they did this in 2 ways. One is the way they learned counterpoint. We have some notebooks of counterpoint exercises, and one is by Verdi's teacher, Vincenzo Lavigna, and is currently housed in the library of the Conservatorio of Milan. So they started with pages and pages and pages of diminution on the cadenza. So on opening tonic, middle dominant, and closing tonic. And they started in 2 voices, first with whole notes, then when half notes, then quarter note, and then writing more elaborated diminution. Then they did the same thing in three voices, then in four voices. So diminution was taught in counterpoint and also in Partimento. Think, for example, the so-called figurati partimenti of Durante. So Durante gives you the figure base, and then 2 or 3 or maybe 4 example of diminution. So he tells you, well, you can use this style. Use the word style, not diminution. This diminution, or this, or this, or this, and then you have to continue. I think the diminution is extremely important thing for Partimento playing, because it has a great importance. Could have a great importance for today performers. And for this is another important topic. So the importance of Partimento in the current musical life and the current musical teaching.
You also mentioned another important thing, which is imitation. And so how is imitation important in the Partimento tradition?
Oh, very. The arrival point of Partimento course was fugue. So obviously you had to learn imitation before attempting to improvise a fugue on a Partimento. Partimenti could be written, unwritten, just guessed, and so one of the most important thing about imitation in Partimento is the way you have to recognize or identify 2 bass segments and that are in relationship of double or invertible counterpoint. So you have this bass line, and you have a theme, let's call it theme, or a melody of 2, 3, or 4 bars, and then you have a different melody. So at a certain point, at the beginning, you don't realize that there are something special in these melodies, but when you're experienced, you start to realize that the 2 melodies can be superimposed. So they're in double counterpoint relation. And very often, one of the melody is fast moving and interesting, and the other melody is slow moving and not so interesting. So what you have to do is put the interesting thing on the not so interesting thing, and vice versa. And you don't need to have some special sign like saying, oh, this is an imitation here. No, you have to find out yourself.
What are the phases?
Yes, Fenaroli mentioned 2 phases. One is with simple consonances. It means by simple consonances, when you have a Partimento in front of you, the first thing you have to do is to figure out what the basic harmony structure is. So just play the chords, just try to figure out what the basic chords are. And secondly, you have to add, Fenaroli said, you have to add the dissonances. And by dissonances, Fenaroli means the suspensions. And because it was the only kind of dissonance they recognized, passing and neighboring note were part of diminution. A student of Fenaroli, Guarnaccia, added a third stage, and the third stage was diminution and imitation. So I think that is a very wise way to realize Partimenti. So first of all, you have to think about the chordal structure, and then you have to add the suspension when it is the case, and diminution and imitation. So this is the thing you have to do. I'm discovering now that I'm preparing a master class in Sbarano, which will take place in northern Italy, will take place in 2 days. And so I'm working about the material I'm giving them to my student, and I'm still discovering that the kind of diminution you want to choose may influence the structure. So that's a thing that I discovered quite recently. So it's not entirely true that the diminution is the last stage and it is some kind of, something added above. but the choice of diminution may also influence the structure. This is an interesting thing that I need to work out a little more.